It's Rebecca Halliday from Riverbend Community School, and I'm here to talk to you today about neurodiversity and tell you about some truth bombs that my kids dropped today, my students at my school, about what it's really like and what they find frustrating about being kids with differently wired brains, aka those of us who are neurodiverse humans. I want to talk to you about what it means to be neurodiverse and what we can do as the grown-ups in these kids' lives to support them and help them find their awesomeness, because that should be our mission. That's my mission, and I hope you will join me on my crusade. So, item number one, what is neurodiversity? It is, at its core, people with differently wired brains. There's a lot better definitions out there on the interwebs that you can go look up. I'm gonna try and stop doing this, but I can't stop moving because guess what? I am neurodiverse myself with ADHD. If you don't know who I am, I have a small school here in Moncton, New Brunswick on Church Street called Riverbend Community School for kids who are neurodiverse and who have ADHD. So that's what neurodiverse really means, is kids who have ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, a learning disability of any kind. Tourette's falls under neurodiverse, as does autism. So I'm not an expert on neurodiversity, so I'm sure there's many fantastic resources you can find, but what I do know is it's important that we start understanding kids who have differently wired brains and not trying to cure them or not trying to force them to become better or shame normal, because as we know, there is no such thing as normal. There's really not. If we don't start appreciating and understanding these kids for who they are and not trying to cure them and make them better, we are going to miss out on helping them tap into their potential. So I think when we think of LD, a learning disability, or dyslexia or ADHD, we think of that automatically as being a disadvantage or bad. Oh, he can't read, he's dyslexic, or oh, she has ADHD, she'll never be able to focus and we just really need her to sit down, and oh, that's really bad, her life is going to be so impacted and maybe terrible because she has ADHD, or whatever it is we say about, the diagnosis of having a learning disability or being neurodiverse. We see it, I think, oftentimes as bad. I think we need to change that conversation and the dialogue around the negative connotation of being a neurodiverse person. There's so many things that make being a neurodiverse person amazing, and we have to start using that language with kids and adults who are wired this way. I have a school full of, kids and one teacher, this gal, who have differently wired brains, and we do see the world in a different way. And I think more often than not, we feel misunderstood. I still feel misunderstood. I still feel like I can't explain when things aren't going right in my brain, and when I'm trying to get things done and I can't, I still have a hard time figuring out why. And that's stressful. I'm almost 40 years old, and there's still so many things I need to learn and try and teach myself as an ADHDer, and it's not easy, but I have really amazing support systems in my life, and I have a husband who nurtures me and gets it and is trying to understand ADHD alongside with me, although he's a neurotypical brain. It's a big deal. So I really want to go back and talk about, if you've got a kid in your life who has a diagnosis of ADHD or a learning disability like dyslexia, you need at all costs to help them figure out what they're good at. I have spoken about this before, but if you don't tap into their strengths, which is not always easy, it's not always obvious what they're amazing at. They might not be the kid who can, code a program or rip apart a lawnmower and put it back together without the manual, or be an amazing actor or singer. We often say they have these hidden strengths and talents, and they often do, but if it's not really obvious, your job as the human in their life, whether you're their teacher or their parent, is to tap into their potential and their strength and show it to them at all costs. So we have to start changing the idea that focusing on what they can't do. And, oh, you can't read, you can't take a test, Johnny can't sit down, Johnny can't focus, Johnny can't finish a task. Sally hyper-focuses on all the wrong things and, like, you know, labels stuff till midnight and doesn't necessarily pay the heat bill. You know, sometimes we prioritize things the wrong way, but we can't constantly be scrutinized for the things we can't do. And I think in the classroom, kids are often just, the thing that gets focused on is what they can't do and their inappropriate reactions or their inappropriate behavior. And I know that is a big deal for, you know, classroom management, but listen, there are so many things that kids get accused of doing: not trying hard, being lazy, why did you react this way? Oh my goodness, I do it still myself. And all my kids here are usually, not all of them, but a good majority of them are ADHD, and I struggle with their reactions to things. And I want them to, you know, follow my 5 classroom rules, but sometimes they just actually can't. And we have to start believing that. We can't just try and fix them and make them be normal and have normal reactions. It's not going to work as much as we want them to for the Zen purposes of our mental health. It just doesn't work that way. Sometimes they really can't. Or you go over and a kid still hasn't, the kids are telling me this today, they couldn't do math, okay? They have a learning disability in math or whatever it is, and they couldn't do the math. They couldn't finish the paragraph. So the teacher just says, here's a worksheet, go sit down and do it. They still didn't know the concept, they still didn't understand it, but they were sent away to do it anyway. And when the teacher came back and they just doodled, they got in big trouble for just doodling on their page. We can do better than that, can't we? I'm just saying that finding their strengths and what they are good at needs to be the thing that they focus on. The kids will say all the time, I was so worried because I knew ADHDers, listen to me. They cannot do things that they are not interested in without a ton of guidance and support and hand-holding. They just can't. They cannot sit and focus on stuff they hate. And that comes across as being lazy, or we all have to do things we don't like. But for these guys, especially the younger students, they really can't. Cut them some slack, get them to do an assignment that they do like and that they can do and still can show their skill in some other way. Let them make a video of the paragraph that you so badly want them to write that they will write for you just because they have to hand something in. That's not going to help them. My point today, people, is that if we don't start tapping into the true potential of these kids and showing them their worth and showing them their champions, other ADHDers and other dyslexics and other people with whatever it is they have, and show them how their brain works and start to use the language of neurodiversity and celebrating all the things that they can do and finding ways to celebrate that all day long, their strengths, they will start to believe that their only worth is tied up in what they can't do. And that is what I see here when my kids get here. They need an environment where their learning is accommodated, where they use assistive technology, where they are shown 18 million different ways to do the math problem, or they listen to books on audio tape until their reading level increases. If you say to a kid, you can only read from that bucket, you're only reading from level M today because that's where your reading is at, it's gonna kill their love of reading. We can find ways to ignite passion in all sorts of learners, okay? But I guess I keep coming back to it, but if we keep just focusing on what they can't do and making them learn in an environment that scrutinizes them for the way their brain is wired, they will start to give up. They will start to misbehave. And that's when they usually come here. And my job is to undo some of the messages they believe about themselves, to help coach parents into not necessarily believing all the things that they've been told about their kids, such as your kid will never be able to learn to read, they should be able to do this. Just try some forgiveness. Try not shaming these kids for the things that they are wired innately to not be able to control. And it's a really hard thing, I get it. It's not easy, and we need to support each other through this journey as parents and as teachers when we do want to get mad and angry and give up on the fact that the kid just won't sit down or just won't complete the thing, or is rude, or we get really indignant and offended by rudeness of these kids, but sometimes their feelings and their executive functions just don't let them control that. So my message today is, let's be their champions. Oh, I had written this really good thing down, just let me say it. Oh yes, are you ready for it? Teachers, hear me now. Parents, hear me now. You are their opportunity makers. You are their role models and partners in their learning. So what are you gonna do to make sure they feel celebrated and honored for who they are, rather than you trying to make them into somebody they just aren't? Okay? So if that is something that's tricky for you and you don't know where to begin, riverbendschool.ca. Email me, rebecca@riverbendschool.ca. We've got lots of stuff going on here. Day school, tutoring, hybrid. We've got tutoring in the morning. Just reach out to me. I'm not here just to get you to come to my school. I want to start a movement of people who support neurodiverse thinkers, such as myself. If I thought too long and hard about opening a school when I was only, 2 years out of my teaching program, that was maybe, I jumped into it really quick, I will say that. But, as ADHDers, one thing I can focus on as a strength is we are risk takers. We are 400% more likely to become entrepreneurs and, change makers. So help me be a change maker for kids who have differently wired brains. They're amazing. They're the best. They're gonna change the world, but they can't change the world if we keep telling them that they're broken. They're not. Peace out.